What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P, Shannon White, more Steelers global perspective coming at you right now. Shannon, you gave me a really good little I'm not going to call it a tidbit because we're doing a show on it, but a good little thing you picked up in the last week or two, and I think worth quickly covering off in this sort of quick snap episode, if you like, of the Steelers global perspective. Let's get straight into it. Tell us what it is.
Well, I was watching a guy on a podcast. There was four former, there's a couple players and, four guys in this podcast. Let's put it that way. And they were talking about.
And they're not Steelers guys, just.
No, not Steelers guys at all. And this guy was talking about a Fellowship of Christian Athletes seminar, and he had to speak after Tim Tebow.
Right.
And he's talking about what a great guy Tim Tebow is, and I have a lot of respect for him, even though what he did to us in the playoffs. I won't get into that. But he was talking about the playbook, and he wasn't talking about a specific playbook, but he was saying that how important it is to know the playbook. And Tim Tebow said, "Yeah, it's important to know the playbook, but it's also more important to know the creator of that playbook." And what he was talking about was that as a quarterback, he had so much success, especially in college, because that he was so close with the head coach, and that he was like an extension. That playbook, they were so close as a coach and a player that he knew what the call was going to be before he got the call. And he knew because they were on the same wavelength. They thought alike, and he understood why each play was called and what the purpose was and what the intended result was. And that got me thinking. Matt Canada, during his tenure, everybody talked about there was no communication.
Yeah.
And he didn't really think that it mattered that the players understood how, when, why, and where.
Well,
and he was like, I'm going to call the plays, and you're just supposed to execute them. But there has to be a closer relationship between an offensive coordinator and your players, especially the quarterback. And there was never that chemistry under Matt Canada.
Well, see, I heard this bloke speak in this podcast earlier this week, and he was talking about this with the wide receivers and Zani, the wide receiver coach, and the blocking. Anyway, so this bloke, Shannon White, said on this show called The Steelers Hangover about the importance of blocking and how Azani had drilled that discipline into the Steelers wide receivers. That's you, obviously. You said that on the Hangover this week. But it's 100% true. And I think that playbook, that element, it's why I think someone like and obviously Terrell Austin's the DC, but I think it's why you hear a Patrick Queen say something like, I know what I'm doing. I'm more comfortable here. This is the environment for me. This is what I like doing, right? You hear these sorts of things with players. But I also think, and what I loved when you told me this, because it's not that it obviously seems common sense, and I get the Christian analogy as well that Tebow was drawing to that about the playbook. But it's also very important because we brought in Arthur Smith, which is an offensive shift, and then we brought in Russell Wilson. And then Russell Wilson stays in the building for 8 hours talking to Arthur Smith. They both walk away with grins on their faces. Russell Wilson's done well in his career when he's had a run-first offense. That is how he's played.
Yes.
You said in the last show that we did, provided I don't put this one out first, but I probably won't. I'll put the other one out first. You said about the stars aligning for a championship team. I'm not necessarily saying the Steelers going to be in the Super Bowl. But that alignment and that being on the same page is huge. And obviously that's a common sense thing around the league. But we see that that's not the case so much of the time.
Nope.
And so it's nice to see that right now everything looks to be sort of fitting that bill, I guess, from what we've seen in OTAs.
They never had that degree of familiarity, that degree of communication, of chemistry. It was just not there, and the offense suffered mightily, and you've seen it. Landon Roberts was talking about last year, and training camp and practices. He said that they pretty much they all knew their roles. They knew their defense. Defense was ahead of the offense, and it was. He basically said it was predictable.
Yeah.
He said this year with Arthur Smith's offense, he said they changed the tempo. He said they rushed up to the line and quick snapped, and he said they caught him out of position. They hit a touchdown over the top to Fitzpatrick, one of the backup receivers. There's going to be a change in tempo. There's going to be movements and shifts that mean something, that are done to create a desired effect, not just to say it's a zone or man coverage. It was so simplistic. I mean, I don't think anybody still truly understands how high school this offense was. Now we're seeing, and the defense is saying, hey, they surprised us. We don't know what's coming. And, hey, we want to hear that. We want to hear that. This is, a lot of these guys are very experienced top line professionals, and it's their own offense, and they still surprise them. If it's just little things as like tempo or shifts.
But they should. But they should. Like I remember. Okay, and maybe this is an interesting point. And maybe this segment's going to go a lot over than what you and I both anticipated. When I watch anything about like any American football practice, right? No matter whether I'm watching, I've gone and watched things on YouTube, like high school, college, or not just YouTube, but on their websites, NFL, even the way you guys mock it in, American football, drama shows, even to an extent, the way it's mocked. Like, it's obviously there's a lot of the simulation of the offense and defense, right? When I grew up, NFL playing American football here is very, very difficult. You pretty much can't do it until you leave high school, and even then, that there's only a handful of teams, and those handful of teams, you often have to sit on the bench for like 2 years before you get to even play special teams. Like it's not a realistic thing to play. It's very difficult, which is why people that have got any hope of wanting to do this, move to the States. But I remember a lot of my rugby practices growing up. There were practices where we would absolutely, like on offense or defense, when we were split, get flogged by one of the, on the opposite side of the ball. Absolutely gets destroyed. And you go into a game feeling like, oh my God. But there'd be some years that we would feel like we had the best defensive team or we had the best attacking team. So actually, especially when we were going, a couple of games into the season or through the preseason. And so you kind of got there, you're like, oh yeah, I might have got belted by my defense this week at training, but that team don't have our defense, right? So we were hardened by it. And it's just funny because I want obviously I want the offense to be feeling good, but the Steelers should have the most expensive defense in the league. They should have a top 5, top 10 offense, given the money that they're spending and given the names and the talent that are there. So the offense should be having a hard time. Like that should provide them with a confidence in their own, right? And the Steelers defense, even if they're owning the offense in drills and practices, should be going out there and going, okay, well, this offense has got some pretty good names on it, but we can do this. We now got to show it on Sunday, right? So I just think that like sometimes, I guess my overall point is, you don't want them to go through a practice. Everyone's like, the offense did great and the defense did great, and that's great. Like my favorite things over the last few years at a training camp are George Pickens ran down that guy, ran around that guy. George Pickens flattened that bloke. George Pickens schooled Joey Porter Jr. Then my favorite things are this bloke picked that one. That guy, this young guy got, like Benny Bishop had Roman Wilson had a touchdown in one of the first 7 shots drills that they had, but he didn't have 2 feet in the end zone. That's what he's got to work on. I guess my point of view is I don't want both the offense and defense to have good days, at training camp. I want one to beat the other. That's important.
It shouldn't be easy. It shouldn't be, they did the 7-on-7 and 5 shots and they scored on all 5. There should be competition. You should be like we've heard when the Steelers have had great teams in the past, They're like, man, it was actually a relief to go against another defense.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Because we wasn't playing the Steelers defense. And last year, if you believe in yourself, I always told my son, before anybody else can believe in you, you got to believe in you. There's a certain level of confidence that you have to have, and you have to be able to show that to people around you for them to have faith that you're qualified. Last year, how many players? Well, Chooks Okorafor is no longer even on the team, but he didn't have any confidence in Matt Canada. Kenny Pickett didn't have confidence in Matt Canada. Deontay Johnson didn't have confidence in Matt Canada. I mean, down the line, it was, why?
There is no way Pat Freiermuth has confidence in Matt Canada.
No,
absolutely no way.
No way. And he didn't even know how to use Calvin Austin III.
He said that.
Yeah, he said it. So what I'm saying is, if you don't,
can you imagine that? I just want to pause that because I joke about it all the time. Can you imagine being the offensive coordinator for a team and your team drafts someone in the 4th round with an important pick? You had multiple positions you had to fill for pure speed in a sweep-led offense.
Yeah.
And you go, I don't know how to use it.
What am I supposed to do with him? Yeah. If you don't believe in a play before you even go to run it, 9 times out of 10, it ain't going to be successful. As you know, and we've all heard, every coach I ever had said, when you say I can't, you're right. And if you don't believe in the play before it even starts, you're doomed for failure.
Yeah, that's it. Well, we got very heated, very interested on that one. But that's going to close out this segment of the Steelers Global Perspectives. Stay tuned for more from us. Go Steelers.